Yay. Okay, well, welcome, Robert Zerflu, to our meeting again. I know that you've been to a few meetings and judging contests, and as well as our best of year. And I did get to look at, and you used to be the president of the Cranberry Photo Club, correct?
I was the vice president for a few years.
And also you were active in the Soho Art Gallery.
No, that wasn't me.
That wasn't you?
No, it wasn't me.
Oh, that was a different
It was
Robert.
another judge you had. No, I'm a member of the South Jersey Camera Club as well,
Okay.
down in Medford.
And what, yeah, and what in particular do you like to take photos of, or are you just a
Well,
general?
I do like landscapes, so I try to travel, and I alternate going to Switzerland and Iceland every year,
Oh, I love that.
taking a few people with me on an annual basis. But fall is here, and Saturday I met up with Arik Gorban over at the Ken Lockwood Gorge, which I've never been before, which is near Lake Solitude, just north of Clinton, and I can highly recommend going there maybe next week or the week after. It's easy walking. It's a nice trail along the water. And Arik got a beautiful picture shooting from the trail with his tripod and a long lens. And he got his beautiful reflections before noontime, like at 9 a.m., before the sun was even high, with like the blues and the yellows in the water and the flowing water. It was pretty. So yeah, I'm leaving the country on Thursday, so I'll hopefully won't miss the peak before I come back. And I do wildlife a little bit whenever I catch
That's
some.
what I saw some wildlife pictures. So
Yeah,
those weren't you on the Soho site, the shadows and the windows. Oh,
no, that wasn't me.
I was going to talk about them.
But feel free to send me a link to that one so I take a peek.
Okay.
All right. So,
All right. Okay, let me just move this over. And we're going to start, as I said, with Open B. Stonebridge Photography Club, Open B. First picture, the Ivory Halls of Duke.
So for the beginner and intermediate group, I'll judge it by that. So I give a little more comments. I'm a little easier on the group, right? And give you more feedback. Now, I find it interesting that you had a rather bland sky, right? And the conversion into black and white probably worked out well, because now we can focus more on the trees and on the brick building itself. However, I feel like there's a lot of chaos in that picture, because I would like maybe to focus more on the building and the structure and the stone without the tree there that's like in front of it and obstructing everything with the branches. So I wonder if you could have gotten a stronger image of this building by going over to the stairs and like looking at the tower, and maybe get the people in there, do a little storytelling. And then we don't have those distracting branches coming in from the top right into the picture itself. So I think there's a lot of potential in this image. There's a lot of like good angles you could get. You could do some storytelling with the students there. But as is, with those branches coming in, I find it very distracting. And a different angle would have helped. So we'll take that one out.
A nice place to sit in infrared.
So the choice of infrared, it's kind of fun to play with that. And I don't know if you have a camera that was modified for infrared. So people, sometimes send in an older camera, and people open it up and they mess with the sensor itself and remove filters and do other things. Or if it's just a filter you can put on front of the lens, which gives you a similar effect, maybe not the exactly same one. But it's interesting because it makes the viewer look at the image and wonder what happened here, right? We have those strong reds, and people think the tree, that makes sense because it's fall, it's red. But then you see the lawn and like it's red, and then you play in your mind and think of what is going on. So I give you credit for trying something new. Now, what bothers me in the image is that I feel that that building on the left is a bit crooked. And I would ask that you know, have somebody tell you how to straighten out these lines in Lightroom and have buildings with straight lines up and down, because it looks like it's leaning way to the right. And that just the tree trunk looks straight up, but the building is leaning. So there's some distortion maybe there that we need to work with, or maybe it was from the lens, maybe it was a specialized lens that you used. So that's a little disturbing. But because of you tried something new in the beginner group, you know, I'll give you the credit for that, and it's a striking image. Otherwise, we'll keep it in.
Autumn at Stonebridge.
I like that you didn't go far to take this picture. And sometimes we find like something really fun to shoot in your backyard. And, you know, maybe it was this year, maybe it was one from last year, and you wanted just to document those fallen leaves there. What I like about the image, the first thing that came to mind are those leading lines. You have the beautiful curve, you know, starting on the lower right side and going up of the edging of the garden there. And that helps me as the viewer to find my space in that image, because I start going from there up to the house, and then I explore. There's a tree there, there's another tree there, and then I see the sidewalk, then I see the contrast between the fallen leaves and the green grass. So I like it because it helps me find my way through the image and explore. And you chose a nice time, you know, in the afternoon with those beautiful side lighting. So again, you know, for the beginner group, you tried something to show me something different, maybe. So we'll keep it in as well.
English Castle.
For this image, you know, it's I could go back and talk about the first image contrasting this image here. Now we have a building, but there's no distraction in front of the building. So this really helps me to focus on the structure of it, of the tower, of the brick. What I like about this one is that you included an interesting foreground and the walkway that gets me to the building. We have those gardens in there that you know, enriches the image with the foreground hedges there. So it's a, you know, we're a little back, we make our way forward to that building. It gives me a sense of the place. It gives me a feeling that I am there. And you straighten it out as much as you can, right? So it looks all pretty good. The only thing I would say for this one, you played a little bit with the exposure. You probably had to bring up the building in the foreground and played a little bit with the sky to make it darker, maybe. If you go up on that left tower, if you see that left tower all the way over there, and you go up, you see a little bit of a brightness on that tower itself on the left edge. And those are those halos that you sometimes get. And I would suggest to just, you know, either you have a club member that can show you how to avoid that. It's not that hard. Or if you work in Lightroom or Photoshop, just Google it. Just say how to reduce halos in my edited images and see what videos you can find with. There's just a slight halo, and you can see that probably on your screen as well. We'll keep it in.
Need a ride?
Hold on, I need to click that OK button on top of my frame. Okay. I like that we I kind of like that, you know, we have that whole camel in there, and it shows us a little bit of the character of the animal, right? We have the whole animal in there. It's a beautiful light coming from the side, shining on it. Now, what I would like to see, and what's kind of like important, is that we straighten out the image a little bit. It looks like the ground is going uphill, but I bet, you know, if we can level it out a little bit, then it wouldn't look as crooked. But I'm wondering if this is the image as shot, and if you try to level it out, maybe you lose some of the animal, and you would have to crop it differently. And that's why you kept it this way. For animals, I would also like to say that if you have an animal, and we're going to talk about it more a little later, that is like so close to the edge, like the animal here is looking out on the left side of the frame, head is very close to the left side edge, give it just a little bit more room to look into, to move into, and don't crop it so tight. So when in doubt, when you're out there shooting, when in doubt, take a few steps backwards, zoom out a little bit, and give yourself a little more space because you can always crop afterwards. We'll take that one out.
What makes the Basilia Santa Croce different?
I don't know if I have to answer that question right now because I do not know really if it's a trick question or not. I don't know. Maybe you can put it in the text later at the end of the day. I don't know what makes it so different. Now I'm like struggling with that question. But regardless, I think it's a nicely captured picture of the basilica in the beginner group, right? You included everything you wanted to include. You included a few people to give me a sense of the place, what is going on around the basilica. The sky is pleasing. You know, we don't have a washed out sky. I don't know if there was any sky replacement done or if those clouds were like that on that day. The only thing I would say, give yourself a little bit more room on the top because it gets really tight with that cross up there. But I think for the beginner group, you know, for your B group, I think this is nicely exposed. It's sharp where it needs to be sharp, and you captured a nice memory of your trip there. So we'll keep it in.
Under the lift in black and white infrared.
I shot infrared was a filter for the first time this year in Switzerland, and I was amazed how dark those filters are. I had like 4-minute exposures of that. So I assumed that the lift didn't really run because a 4-minute exposure with a lift running, it would have had those lifts, those little seats blurry and maybe disappearing in your image there. Infrared is interesting, right? Because we have then these highlight areas, these very bright areas and maybe some darker areas. And I feel that in this particular image, we lost a lot of detail in those bright areas. Maybe because it was midday and it was overexposed a little bit. But it seems just very bright under that lift there where all those tall grasses are. And I wonder if you had exposed it a little less. Maybe you had blown out highlights in your image, or maybe not, or maybe it's just the screen, or maybe it was the processing. Then we would see more details. And I feel like there's a lot of details that were lost. And so I think a darker image where those highlights are a little darker, and then the sky is darker and more dramatic too, and the trees are a little darker, maybe that would be a more striking image. We'll take that one out.
Tree at sunset.
That sunset reminds me of what just happened tonight outside. We had a pretty decent sunset in New Jersey for a change. Haven't had one of those in a long time, but this is a nice sunset. And I think you choosing this, tree in the wintertime with no leaves creates this wonderful contrast between the dark silhouette and that beautiful sky with all those hues and different colors from those deep dark, beautiful oranges and reds up to that blue in the top right corner. One thing you can play with, maybe, I wonder, is what would this image look like if the trunk had been completely darkened? Like on the bottom where you have that light shining on the trunk, just a little bit. Ask yourself if you need that, or if you could have gone over it with a mask and just darkened the trunk so we have a total silhouette of the trunk and of the tree as a whole. I wonder how that would look and if it would have made more impactful image. But as is, the striking image, right? It grabs the viewer's attention right away. And sometimes you hear judges say like, oh, I don't like this one because, the tree is in the middle. But sometimes it's better to have something in the middle like you have it here. I think this works well. I think you chose with a purpose and you did a good job here. So we'll keep it in.
The Mountain Church of Split.
The church itself, you know, it was like probably a little overcast day, and you exposed it well. It's nice and sharp throughout, and it shows me this church place as you see it as you walked by, right? So it's like a little documentation of the place itself. Now I wonder what you could have done to make it your own. And with a place like this, I wonder if we could have captured a different angle, or we could have had a longer lens and just focused on some of the detail of the building next to just the natural rock itself, right? To make this your own, because right now I feel like it's like you saw something and you took a picture of it. What I'm struggling with here with the image, I mean, it's a nice image and a nice memory of your trip, but what I'm struggling with the most in this image is that one person that is hiking past the building, looking down at their feet so they don't trip and fall. And they're a little blurry because we probably caught them in motion as they were hiking. I would say, and there's another person on the lower left side, I see the hat. I would say, you know, try to, when you have a picture like that and you want to enter it for competition, try to use one of the newer tools like the generative fill in Photoshop, and they now have it in Lightroom as well. And who knows what an update will bring this October when they have the big Lightroom update. I assume that most of you use Lightroom, because then you can eliminate those two people right away and other distractions and a little more editing. That building would pop and stand out more. I like the colors, I like the building itself, but I'm really distracted by the people. And I think a different angle could have done more. But it's the beginner group, and you know, so I'm a little torn right now, but we'll keep that one in.
Pink tulip in infrared.
I think this orange background, right? That makes it a different flower picture that like we usually don't see it because you chose the infrared way. The background would be green otherwise. And again, you know, the viewer looks at it and says, hey, right, well, what's going on here? And it plays with our mind and we're trying to figure it out. The flower itself is well exposed. I like the addition of the water on it. You know, maybe it rained or maybe you sprayed it a little bit. So that stands out really well. Talking about the background, I'm wondering if we needed that much of it, right? Yes, it's orange. Yes, it makes it more interesting, like because it's different from what we usually see. But there's a lot of there's some highlights back there, right? There's some lines back there that we may not want. The background is not as blurry as we like to have it. So I wonder if you could have just cropped in from each edge a little bit, and that would have eliminated some of the distractions of the background and drawn me more into the flower itself. But we'll keep that one in for now.
Okay, round 2, we have 7. A nice place to sit in infrared.
We'll give it a 7.
Autumn at Stonebridge.
We'll give it a 7.
English Castle.
Give it an 8.
What makes the Basilica de Santa Croce different?
We'll give it an 8.
Tree at Sunset.
We'll give it a 9.
The Mountain Church of Split.
Give it a 7.
Pink tulip in infrared.
We'll give it an 8.
Okay, well, we're going to assign this one as first place because it's a 9. And then we're going to need a second and third place from these 3.
A second and third place.
Yeah.
Do the first castle on the left side for second place.
Okay.
And then for third place, we go with the tulip, just because you try something new and different. And
Okay.
because I'm still thinking of what is special about this church that I don't know.
Let me just move this over. Open B, third place, pink tulip and infrared sandy, really nice. Second place, English Castle Harvey, beautiful job, guy. And first place, Benita, wow, excellent. Okay, now we're going to do open A. Eating and drinking in a warm day.
I like it when you capture the your animals doing something. However, I feel that it suffers a lot from it being kind of soft, and the background being kind of bright. And I wish you were closer there with a longer telephoto lens, and you can see some more details and a sharper image. We'll take that one out.
Golden arches.
The contrast between the natural light stone and the illuminated stone by the artificial lights on the inside of those arches is quite striking, and I think it's well seen. And you positioned yourself well to avoid the overlap between all these columns. So it's a nice image, and you can find yourself lost in there looking at all the different arches going up and down and all these different colored patterns in the stone going from the bottom to the top. We'll keep that one in.
Condo sunset.
I like this abstract feel of the image, even though it's not an abstract image, right? We can all tell what it is. But I love the repeating pattern of the balconies and the different, let's say, background behind the balcony going up from the water into the sky. I have to say, I can't get over it. The inclusion of the bird on the left side, it reminds me of like a cliff diver in Acapulco. It almost looks like somebody like jumping into the water down there. So I don't know if you saw that as well when you look at the image, but because it captures just the edge of my eye, I feel like there's somebody jumping into the water there from the top balcony. What is going on? So it's an interesting image all around. We'll keep it in.
Lost.
Shooting a portrait through those blinds always creates some interesting patterns in people's faces and the hair. And I think you handled the exposure really nicely here. Sometimes it can get really bright on the person's face and really dark, and sometimes you lose the detail where you want to have the detail. But here we have good exposure on the person's face. Maybe not as dramatic as it could be if the one side would be a little darker than the other one. But I like that we can see everything. We'll keep it in.
Purple rose.
The treatment is interesting, what you've done in post-processing here to create a very pleasing image with the complementary colors of like the purples and the greens that go so well together. And I like how it feels like a very serene image. Like it feels like a very beautiful image. And you probably worked a long time on that to get it to that way. And it comes across to the viewer that way. We'll keep it in.
Okay. I just want to make one comment. I don't answer the phone during the contest. Captree Island.
I like the wood that you saw there. I like this bridge and all this old craftsmanship, right? That gets me over the bridge. However, I feel that it's a bit harsh on the wood itself. Maybe it's because it was over sharpened, maybe too much treatment. Also in the clouds I feel like have a lot of drama in it that feels over processed, and that also takes me away from the bridge. Now, the bridge itself, what I would like to see is maybe a little bit more on the left side, so I can see more of that walkway, so I can feel myself walking across that bridge, because right now it gets really tight on the far end of that structure. We'll take that one out.
Golden flower.
I'm drawn to the different lines that the flower has. Like if I look in the background, you have all these curves and all these lines, right? In the reds and the yellows there. However, that main part, that red part, is like sort of on the lower left side almost. It's out of focus. It's totally out of focus, and that is like takes me away from it. It's like a big no-no for the picture. Like if there's something that big, that important, and it's out of focus, it draws me away from the important parts that I look for, that I want to look at, that I want to be lost in. Like, and all these, like I said, all these curves and everything. They're beautiful, the reds and the yellows, but then we have that large area that's out of focus, that's right there, almost in the middle of the image. We'll take that one out.
On a dinner table.
I don't know what that is. I know what Heinz is. There's a company that makes ketchup, but I don't know what's in there. Oh, those are little ketchup packages, maybe. Those are little opening thingies, maybe. Okay. Sorry. I had to figure it out first, right? I love the low angle that you took, and you have these diner tables now that have advertisements in there. George's Garage. Were you at Teddy's? Is that Teddy's? And I like that we have that angle coming in from the window that gives me that shadow on the table of the Heinz container there, holder there. You know what takes me a little bit away are the dirty windows that are there. So the umbrella, like it looks a little bit like, you know, there's some dirt on the window, but that's unfortunate. I would think that if you cropped it differently, that maybe we can minimize that, and we can maybe just focus on that Heinz holder of jams, maybe it is. But it's a good idea, and I love that you just had your camera or your cell phone on the table, and you like say, hey, the light's coming in. I'll take a photo of what's here to document it. We'll keep it in.
Photo bomber.
It's I'm sure you were bummed out when it kind of happened, and you thought, yeah, I'll put this one in and see what the judge says. I kind of, you know, like that you had that iguana there in the background, and you wanted to get in, and maybe the bird just landed there. But it's a hard, like it's hard for me as the viewer to figure out like what is it that you want me to see, right? Because the bird is so bright, the bird is out of focus. I see the iguana's head, which is great, but then I also have like some stone maybe on the lower left side that's yellow. That's maybe part of the ibis's, I guess it's an ibis maybe, environment, and then we've got some reflection maybe on the right side. It's really distracting. So for all those reasons, you know, it doesn't really work out and come together for me. We'll take that one out.
Street paver.
I like the story that the image tells here, right? And the first thing that comes to mind is like, you know, this is hard work. This gentleman looks like he has a heavy bucket, and he works really hard. That metal rod is probably not very light. It's probably really hot, what he carries. And then I look at the back of the hat, and I see he's like, you know, he's not the youngest one anymore. And he's still working a physically demanding job there. And then I like the inclusion of that steamroller and all those lights in New York. And I see West 12th Street, and I'm like, man, those street signs are old. It's an old image that you took a long time ago when they fixed streets like that. So it has like some historical value in there, and it also tells a great story along the way of a time, you know, from quite a few years ago, maybe. We'll keep it in.
Garish garden.
I'm trying to figure out if there is something other than the chair, which is kind of like interesting architecturally, right? It had like some weird angles to it. So it's kind of like a cool chair that maybe you would see at the MoMA at one point on display. But I'm struggling with like, what is it that you want me to see? Is it like just the empty chair? Because the seating surface is not very exciting that I'm looking at. Or is there more meaning to it with all the paint on the floor and the plants around it? So for that reason, I'm struggling a lot with it. It doesn't really come together for me that way. If you had this very interesting chair, because of all the different angles, I wonder if you could have captured a different angle, including those floorboards, including those plants, that would have put just part of this chair in this particular environment. And then, it could have been more of an abstract image, maybe for us to see and trying to guess what is going on here. But as is, I'm struggling with it too much. So we'll take it out.
Abstract zinnia.
It's another very interesting flower picture where you just applied the treatment that you like to apply and do all the processing and editing and whatever you do to it to create this unique image that makes me as the viewer wonder what is going on here. And I can follow those patterns in the flower. I can move around it in a clockwise rotation or counterclockwise, look up and down, look in the background a little bit, and I can find myself lost in the image. We'll keep that one in.
Purple and white.
I like how these brighter lines of the purples and these white lines, take me to that darker lower left corner. So there's lines I can follow that get me through the image, either from the top right to the bottom left or vice versa, depending on how you look at it. So that holds some interest. What I'm struggling with a little bit, and we will keep this one in, but I'm just saying what I'm struggling with a little bit, it could be possibly a little sharper in some of the areas. Like I look on the top right and I feel like you're losing some focus there where there needs to be more focus. So focus stacking may be something to look into. And maybe, maybe a little bit more contrast. So work with those sliders a little bit to make the image pop just a slight bit more. But we'll keep it in.
Reflections on a forest pond.
Photographing reflections, it seems easier than it is. Many times you photograph reflections and then you look at it on the screen. I'm like, oh man, and in real life, it looked way more exciting than it is, than what I brought home. But this one works pretty well, right? You captured those trees probably in late fall or maybe early spring. There's maybe some growth on it. I cannot tell. But they look pretty dead in general. So it's like one of the colder months. And you have that interesting sky in there that's reflected. You have, those white, beautiful clouds and the blue in the sky. The only thing I would say about this one is like, those dark rocks, they snuck in on the bottom right side. And we just wanted to get a picture with lots of reflections, but then we see the bottom of that, that little creek or lake or whatever it was, and we get those rocks that distract a little bit. But other than that, I think it's beautifully seen, and I like the reflections there. It's nicely done. We'll keep it in.
Tricolor heron seeks food.
Those are not that common in Jersey, are they? There were a bunch in Ocean City this year, the tricolored herons, and that came up. But they're kind of cool to watch. The heron is not in focus. The heron is pretty blurry when I look at the head, right? And when we photograph that animal, right, we need to have the animal crisp and sharp. Now, I'm wondering if it was a special treatment that you applied in post-processing, because when I look just to the left of that heron, when I look at some of those leaves there, they almost look like they're glowing. And I wonder if the original picture of the heron was a bit sharper, and if your editing has made him lose focus a little bit. But like I said earlier in some of the animal pictures, give yourself a little more room when you shoot the animal, and then add, before you crop, add some room. The heron looks out on the right side, give him a little bit more room on the right side to look into something. We'll take that one out.
Independent.
So here you followed that rule of thirds quite well, right? Not only do you have the plant on the on the rule of thirds there on the right side, but I would say the top of the plant is also going up and down is on the top third there. So you probably have that right where those lines intersect. And we look at that, those rule of thirds lines where they intersect. And then we have all this other space around it, which is a lot of the sameness, right? So it creates this beautiful, almost negative space around this point of interest that we just focus on, and we can get lost in there. And that's our focal point. So it is well seen and I think well executed. We'll keep it in.
Serene.
I like that the silhouette of the duck, right? And it gives it kind of like this feel of, mysterious duck in the water, like on some strange lake. It's kind of like the image has a nice feel to it, just being silhouettes and reflections in the water and some beautiful light coming in. So I think it has a lot of artistic value that way. I wish for myself that we had included maybe a little bit more space on the left side, maybe a little bit more on the top. But I think it's well seen and something different that you may not recognize the first time you see it in nature, but you took a picture of it and you edited it a little bit and you're like, this will make a good image, and it holds my interest. We'll keep it in.
Back pedal.
It almost looks like there was some ice involved, or there wasn't some other element with the background in there, and those droplets on the flower. I'm not quite sure how you did it and what was involved. I have to say that I do like the curve of the flower. I do like that we see it from underneath. I do like that it's well exposed. I like the colors of the background, but I'm not too keen on the texture itself, and I'll tell you why. I feel that the flower is very pretty. It's very delicate. I like those little spherical, tiny droplets of water on it. But then my eye goes to the top left, and it looks like a big splat over there, right? It looks like something on that background texture that you have, that you included in the image. It's just something big and out of the place up there. And I wish that wouldn't be there. I wish the background would be a little bit different. But regardless, the flower itself is really nicely captured, and it was a good idea to photograph it the way you did. We'll keep it in.
Beach time.
We get so many, every competition there's a beach photo in there. They're always like a little different. And what I like about this one here, it's not just the clouds in the sky, right? It's just beautiful. Clouds in the sky is beautiful. The people are nice in the picture, right? They're all separated. They're all sharp throughout. They're all well exposed. But I do like the bottom left little sunshade that I have up and how it blows in the wind too. It gives me like an idea of what the day was like. The waves are coming in, was a little windy. That sunshade is blowing, it was a little bit windy. You got some beautiful clouds moving through, probably quickly in that wind. So again, it gives me a good sense of place. And I do like the way the sand, in the foreground is curvy when it leads me to those people that are a little further back. So there's different elements going on there. The colors work well together. We'll keep that one in.
Relaxed.
I like how you captured a like quiet day in a resort town with just two people that are relaxing and doing their own thing and reading. It's almost like a street photography on vacation, right? You capture the people. You capture the pool people that hang out by the pool before the storms come in the early afternoon. So that way, it's a nice image of, hey, this is where I stayed. These are the people we had around. It's well seen for that. There's a good amount of interest in it. It's not overwhelming. It's kind of like a little more quiet. I kind of wish that we would see those people a little bit closer, but then again, if you're closer, then you would have to take out the umbrella and the blue umbrella and the background palm trees, and then we would lose that as a interesting part of the image. Yeah, we'll keep that one in.
Zinnia, enjoy.
Yeah, I get a pattern here. I think that must be the same maker that does all the other flowers at this point. The again, flowers beautifully shot. Like you got that down. You got the flowers sharp. You got the flowers well exposed. For this particular image, right? I almost feel like the flower blends in with some of the colors in the background. And maybe that was your intention, to have like some color in the background where it's almost the same as the flower, but then you also have some more bolder colors like those oranges and purples in the background and pinks. And when I look at this image, like I am focused on the background more than on the flower. And if the flower is the main subject, then you're not grabbing me, because right now I'm looking at all these colors in the background. Maybe it was a painting that you've done before and you included it in the image. I think it could be edited a little differently, maybe when you could lower the exposure on the background. If you make that a little darker and maybe a little more out of focus, maybe that would bring me back to the flower itself. We'll take that one out.
Okay, for round 2, we have 14 images. Open A, golden arches.
We'll give that one a 9.
Condo sunset.
Give that one an 8.
Lost.
I'll give it a 7.
Purple rose.
I'll give it an 8.
On a dinner table.
I'll give it an 8.
Street paver.
Give it a 9.
Abstract zinnia.
We'll give it an 8.
Purple and white.
I'll give it a 7.
Reflections on a forest pond.
I'll give it an 8.
Independent.
I'll give it a 9.
Serene.
I'll give it a 9.
Backpedal.
I'll give it an 8.
Beach time.
I'll give it a 9.
Relax.
I'll give it an 8.
Okay. We're going to do a first, second, third, and the others will be honorable mention.
I'll do the beach scene as first place.
Okay.
We'll take the duck as second place. And I'll take the architectural arches as third.
Okay. Open A, honorable mention, street paver, Dan, once again, beautiful. Independent, Dan, wow, tonight's your night. Third place, Golden Arches, Rich, beautiful job, Rich. Second place, Bobby Greenfield, really nice, Bobby. And first place, real time, Mario, way to go. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do animals B. Cows.
I like that you included the 3 cows, right? And the issue here, I mean, it's well exposed, right? And you included 3. And the only issue I would say, and it's hard with all the animals, and I'll talk a little bit more in the beginner group, they gotta look at you. They gotta look at you, right? Or they gotta look at something of interest, or they gotta interact with something to have a stronger image, right? And that can sometimes be really hard because they just lie there all the time. But I think for the beginner group, you thought about it and you're like, I'm gonna have those 3 cows. I can see all their eyeballs. We have well exposed. We left a little bit more room for that right cow, just a little tiny bit more room to look out to the right side. So you thought about that probably. You could have cropped it a little closer, but you didn't. So we'll keep that one in for the beginner group.
Grooming on a Sunday afternoon.
So here we have the animals interacting, doing something, which is great. It's what we want to see. It would be nice if they had a, more of an expression, or if that monkey on the left would look at the monkey on the right while they're being groomed. But sometimes we just have to wait a long time for that. I like how you kind of like framed them, and you kept those those branches going up, kind of like there, so we can see them like almost being held up by that tree, like a hand would hold them up. So for the beginner group, we keep them in, and you captured the highlights in the eyes of that one monkey. So that's well done from your end.
What a beautiful day.
Now for that little guy, and I don't know what country you were, where there's all these monkeys running around, it suffers a little bit, right? It suffers a little bit from the time of the day where it was just so bright on the monkey that his eyes are totally dark. And with the animals, like, we gotta have that eye contact to make that personal connection. Yes, you were eye level with them, but they didn't really look at you at that moment. They were just looking at something that we don't know what it is. And that's a little problematic because we don't get that connection from the animal. Yes, you saw the monkey in a very unique space, really high up, with a big cliff right underneath him, but he doesn't care about that because he's a good climber. But I think if he had just turned his head towards you, right, it would be a strong image because of the connection we can make. We'll take him out.
Wriggle and Hinga.
I love that we have that pattern in the feathers a little bit. Like sometimes when we see those unhingers, I think, we don't see those white little feathers in the back. Now, for that type of image, if you want to show us those white feathers because they're very cool and unique, that would be great for a very long lens and getting really close to those guys. But if they're on a wildlife drive, they're kind of far away, and it's hard to get close to them, even with a longer lens sometimes. Then you can show that to us. With this image, it's problematic because the bird is looking away from us. He's looking out into the water. We cannot make this connection with the bird. We just see that small part that is of interest, which is that feathery part on the back. And there's a lot of other things in the image that don't add to it. Now, if the bird had been sideways, that would have been a better story. If the bird had faced us, that would have been a better story. But as is, it's hard to have that impact that the image could have. We'll take that one out.
Frigate bird.
Oh, I learned about those on the Galapagos. The frigate bird is the one that like turns the other birds upside down and shakes them until they vomit, and then they fly underneath and they capture the vomit and they eat that, right? Isn't it a frigate bird? And if they get their feathers wet, they die because they're not waterproof. That's what I learned from my wife, who went to the Galapagos without me. Just saying. There was only one spot available and she took it. She's a veterinarian. I cannot blame her. But here you have that eye contact, right? You caught a little bit of a highlight in the eyeball, right? We got a little bit of light in the eye. We got a beautiful angle there. We see a lot of detail in that bird, and details is sometimes really hard when you have a black bird. You have to really work those sliders and Lightroom to get it the way you want it to be and remember it. And we have a good amount of room on the left side of the bird where the bird is looking into the sky. It's nice and muted in the background. The exposure is great. We'll keep that one in.
Marine iguana.
Yeah, the iguanas, like I can, again, I only know them from pictures that I've seen that my wife brought home. They're like all over each other, as you can tell in the image, and that really comes through in the image. And there's a giant iguana in the back there. Oh my God, it's like Godzilla there. But what I liked again here, it's like we have some interaction between these creatures that either move really fast or they don't move at all, so it seems. And the two of them, they're like buddy up, and they're putting their head, putting their little foot, their claw, whatever you want to call it, on the shoulder of the other guy. And we have like some nice details on the faces of the two of them. The one on the right side looks like we have a little bit of a focus fall off on the front of the mouth, maybe, but that's minor, and me being nitpicky. But I like them. We can see really details in their head, and there's quite some character in those guys. We'll keep that one in.
Big brown bear.
That is a big brown bear, and you are probably way too close, or you do have an 800 lens with a teleconverter. I don't know what it was, right? That is a big brown bear. I like that you not only captured the face really well with a lot of detail, and the claws really well, and it gives you like an idea of what these guys are, like how powerful and strong. So we'll keep it in, but for me, I'm gonna have to be nitpicky with you a little bit in the maker there, and tell you that if you do not know generative fill, since it's not a nature competition, feel free to use generative fill, and you see what I believe is some garbage there, so sort of on the left side of the image, like halfway up, there's some blue label in there. I assume that's garbage. There's something, and you should just take that out. It's so easy with any tool. Replace it with some sand. Has a more impactful image, unless you wanted to keep it in just to show that people pollute where they shouldn't. But we'll keep that picture.
Time to walk the dogs.
So I would, you could make an argument that because of this is probably Florida or somewhere, that these are the natural Afghan hounds in their natural environment. But I would say that they look to me like somebody's pet, right? They look to me like those are their dogs, and maybe they're dog walkers, and maybe they just have these kind of hounds. So I'm gonna, take it out for that reason. But I feel
You want to DQ it?
we'll take it out because it's
Okay.
to me it's a pet. But to comment on the image itself, it's like you captured a nice dog walker moment with just 4 of these great hounds and people walking down the street, but they're domesticated pets in my book. Thank you. We'll take it out.
Sheep in the meadow.
The sheep is quite cute, right? But it does suffer from the motion blur. And from what I can tell, like maybe put a vignette around it, but maybe it was kind of late in the day and you accidentally had a slower shutter speed than you wanted to. And that's why the sheep's head and body is a little bit out of focus. Or maybe you tried to show like the animal in motion, and you wanted it to be a little blurry. But in either case, me as the viewer looking at the animal, I'm like, okay, I wish the animal would be really sharp because it's kind of looking at us and would be good. And no, pets were not allowed, right? That's what I got at the directions. I see a question there. And the foreground fence or whatever this is kind of distracting. So we'll take that one out as well.
Camouflage.
Animals and domestic environments should not be included. Pets or animals and domestic environments should not be included. So no pets.
Oh, okay. The only question I had was disqualified is different than taking it out.
What was the question from you?
No, the only question I had for the future is if you throw it out like that, you may want to say disqualified instead of throwing
Oh,
it.
okay. Okay, yeah. So
That's the only issue.
yeah, so it was a pet and we can disqualify it.
Yeah,
then. Okay,
yeah.
I didn't get that. Sorry.
Mhm.
I like the iguana in the leaves, right? But I feel again, yeah, we have the eye contact, which is great, and we have a reasonably good exposure, right? The leaves look all well exposed to me. But the iguana's head and the eyeball is not as sharp on my screen as I wish it could be. Now, if I look at the iguana's leg, I feel it's very sharp. I feel these dots look sharp to me. And then I go up to the face and I feel it's not. So that's always like an issue when we shoot those animals. And what I've been doing a lot more since I got a mirrorless camera many years ago now, is I just bump up that shutter speed, like I shoot at 1/2000th of a second, 1/4000th of a second, 1/1000th of a second, like maybe this one for like 1/500th of a second because they're not moving depending on the lens. And if the eye is always a little higher, it doesn't bother me anymore because we have topaz denoise, and I can take an image that I shot at 6400 or 12,800 ISO, and I can bring back the detail and still don't have any motion blur and still have it sharp. So I don't know what happened there. It looks a little soft on the head. But it's a beginner group, we'll keep it in.
Oh dear.
I like the angle on the deer that you have there, right? And I like that you captured it on a trail in its natural environment. It's a very pleasing background. I like those rocks in there. I feel that there's a little bit of a quality loss in the deer itself. It looks like a little not as crisp and sharp as I think it could be. And maybe that was because it's a crop and you cropped a lot, or maybe it came from post-processing where you brightened the deer to bring out more detail. Maybe it was a dark image. But I do like the angle a lot. I do like that we have that catch light in the eyeball. I do like that your eye level and the deer is kind of looking in our direction and it's in a natural environment. We'll keep it in.
Land iguana.
I like that you got down a little bit to be more on the eye level with the iguana. Sometimes it's really, really difficult to get all the way down because the getting up part may be really hard once you're down. And I feel we did a good job capturing the iguana's right eye there. Like it really draws me as the viewer in, and then we can see all the different textures and colors in that iguana. And I kind of like how the grasses around the iguana itself, they kind of a uniform color. They kind of like add to the whole image because I can imagine that creature there, that iguana, just making its way through those tall grasses and just being there in its natural environment. I think it's well done. We'll keep it in.
Caribou, are you staring at me?
So here we have a nice image of that caribou where the maker was eye level with it, where we have all those facial features and the antlers and the neck, right? All very sharp. And I like how it blends into this kind of like natural environment where the caribou lives with all those sticks going up, and the kind of creates this chaos, and then the caribou is just all of a sudden there. It's a little center left, which is perfect because it's not centered totally. So it works out really well for that image. We'll keep it in.
Look who's joining us for lunch.
So there we have a little humorous picture of this egret of some sort, maybe, coming by for lunch. So for the human, for the fun of it, it's a very, very cute image we have. And look at those feet and look at those talents that they have. It's quite amazing. I wish, we had a little more separation between what's going on there with the head and the background. It kind of like makes it hard to see the details on the bird's head sometimes because there's so much going on the table behind it that's distracting. And I wish that background would be more blurred, but it was probably just a snapshot, right? Because this guy just joined you for lunch. You know what? For the humor and the effect and the impact it has, because it's so out of place there, we'll keep it in.
Caravan.
I feel that this is tricky, right? Because it's like a domesticated working animal. And I feel that the theme was to shoot animals in a natural environment. And they became working animals, and we see them working here. So I would disqualify this image for that reason, because they're not living freely in their natural environment. For the image itself, I think it was well seen as kind of like almost like a street scene, street photography scene, working animals in the place and how people live, right? You have them walking through the image on a nice diagonal. Wish you had a little more room on the right side, but I feel that was not the purpose of the definition I got, because they're working animals.
Florida heron.
Are you sure that's a heron? I could be wrong. I feel like putting up my app now. Looks like a stork to me, but I could be wrong. I think it's you place the bird well, like off center left with some room on the right, right? You included the whole bird, which is great, and it's problematic time of the day for that particular image because it was so bright, and we can tell that it was very bright by looking at the bird's white feathers, which get really bright, but it's only a small spot. And we look at the bird's very dark legs, where we lose detail there too a little bit because they're so dark and it's so harsh, the lighting there. But overall, I think in the beginner group, you handled it okay, because we see most of the feathers. We see all the detail, right? It's just the wrong time of the day. I like the bird. The background can be a little distracting. With Lightroom, I'm just gonna say that if you use Lightroom and you have that selective blur tool now built into Lightroom, where you can blur the background more because the software kind of knows what was in focus and what was out of focus, you could blur that background probably even more. And maybe mask that background and maybe bring that saturation down a little bit, because those greens are really green in there. But it's a beginner group, and it was well seen. We'll keep it in.
Siesta time.
I like it for the storytelling, right? We have the mama cat there and the baby cats. However, I need to disqualify it because these are pets. These look well too nice for being feral cats. And it could be a barn cat, but even a barn cat I would probably disqualify, because they're not animals in the natural environment, in my sense.
Don't disturb.
So I feel that's a very striking image where we where we just have enough of the animal to A, recognize what it is, and B, we know what the animal is doing. And C, yes, we have the eyes that are in focus that we want to focus on. And the eyes don't always have to be open, right? They can be closed, like for the sleepy one over here. And we know from that story that the eyes are closed and the one is lying down, that he's taking a nap in the afternoon. And I love the contrast between those colored red rocks in there and that brownish beige skin of that sea lion or seal. I think that's a nice image there. We'll keep it in.
Howler monkey.
It's a very interesting pose, and I like that, we have the monkey looking towards us as the viewer. I like that part of it. What I'm struggling with here is kind of like, yes, it's a zoological animal because we can make out the fence. But I would like to see more of a natural environment for this monkey. The definition said that zoo animals, may be included in there, so we'll keep that one in. But I would just wish that I had more of the surrounding of a natural area for that monkey in the image to have more of a sense of where they live. But for the monkey itself, it's an interesting image, and it's has a lot of impact and quite nice lighting on it.
Pelican pal.
If it's the Galapagos again, I don't know if it is, because as I mentioned before twice, maybe, that my wife went and I didn't. But I like the inclusion of that wide angle, huh? When you can get close to those animals and you have a wide angle with you, it adds kind of like a whole different perspective to an animal shot, having a lot of the environment where you live included, while you still get an animal pretty big in your image and in your frame because you're so close to that animal. So it's kind of a fun, different way to shoot an animal without a telephoto lens. For this image, I would just think and say that maybe it would be nice to, the background looks a little crooked to me. Like those mountains look a little crooked. If you could straighten it out a little bit, right? Maybe it was too much of a wide angle lens and that got distorted that way. And that the background is kind of like those cliffs are cut off. So maybe crop it a little lower. Just give me more of the water and the bird in the water to have a stronger image. But I like that you chose a wide angle lens. I like that we have that bird up close and we have, that pelican is beautiful. I just think that those cliffs kind of like distract a little bit, and maybe you can put your hand on top of the screen, maybe just a little bit lower, drop more water, less of those cliffs. I would have had a little stronger image, but I like it. It's different. We'll keep it in.
Okay, we have 14 for round 2. Cows.
We'll give that one a 7.
Grooming on a Sunday afternoon.
We'll give it a 7.
Frigate bird.
Give that an 8.
Marine iguanas.
We'll give them an 8.
Big brown bear.
Give him an 8.
Camouflage.
Give it a 7.
Oh dear.
Give it a 7.
Land iguana.
We'll give him a 9.
Caribou, are you staring at me?
Give it a 9.
Look who's joining us for lunch.
Give it a 7.
Florida heron.
Give it a 7.
Don't disturb.
Give it a 9.
Howler monkey.
Give it a 7.
Pelican pal.
Give it an 8.
Okay. We're going to have a first, second, and third from this.
We'll do the caribou first place. The seal will be second place. And the iguana third.
Okay. Animals beat third place. Hey, Jerry, glad you came to this one. Beautiful picture. Second place. Jerry again. Now, aren't you glad you came? And first place. Sandy. Caribous are you staring at me? Beautiful. Okay. Now for the last contest of the evening, which is Animals A. And we have 25. Sleep, baby, sleep.
I'm gonna disqualify that because it's a pet.
Okay. Lynx. Sorry.
The the eyes are striking of the cat. I'm a little distracted by the background and the greens. The greens are very bright on my monitor here. But the cat has a nice pose. The cat is on his branch there, somewhere at a zoo or wildlife park, I would think. And I think that bobcat is well captured. We'll keep it in.
Standing proud.
I think it's a great choice to turn a giraffe into black and white, especially when you have the beautiful interest in the clouds behind it. As you know, black and white will focus more on the patterns and the shapes, and the giraffe is almost as good as a zebra for that. We'll keep that one in.
Squirrel on the rock.
I do like the squirrel. I wish the background would be less streaky and painterly and be not as strong and overwhelming. But I do like the pose of that squirrel, and it's a unique image, so we'll keep it in.
Monkey face.
I think you captured a great expression here of the animal. Capturing those expressions is wonderful. You have that blurry background. I wish it would be a little less distracting for the salon, for the A group, for the advanced group. But this is hard to do when it's so bright in the background. You probably try to work on it a little bit, but we'll keep it in because of the quality of the animal and the expression on the face there.
Cage.
I like what you've done in the post-processing with the green eyes and the green leaves in the background. I assume there was the real fence in front of it, and you just maybe couldn't get rid of it, or maybe it was part of your message here of the kind of like caged animal and the green eyes and the green leaves and like looking for freedom from the zoo and the wildlife park. So I don't know what the intentions was, but it is a striking image, right? It has a lot of impact on the viewer, and it's very interesting what you created here. So we'll keep it in.
That's close enough.
I would agree with that. These guys are kind of like maybe not that easy to shoot, I would think, because I have only seen them underwater, just floating there. And having one on land and you getting down a little bit to shoot them straight on, kudos to you for doing that, even with a long lens. So I think it's a well done image of that gator straight on. Right on. I mean, we'll keep it in for now. Keep it in.
Orange iguana.
For the A group, I wish we had a little bit more room on the right side. And you guys know that. You're in the A group. Give a little more room for that animal and shoot it a little bit wider. I do like how that orange really stands out from those green leaves in some areas, right? But I feel for this group, you could have created maybe a stronger image with that iguana because he just seems to be, stuck on the right side of the frame. And I wish maybe we could have gotten a close-up of him, of his face. And we'll take him out.
Oh, take it out? Okay.
Take it out.
My blind friend.
It looks like an old one, right? It looks like an old white tiger there. Maybe over at the Six Flags if they still have the white tigers there. What takes me away from the image here, right? Yes, the tiger looks old, and you want me to see that. What takes me away from the image is that rock on the top. And you're in the advanced group, and you could crop that. You could crop the top a little bit. You even could crop the left side a little bit. And if you tell me that, hey, what's really important to me, what's really important for me as the maker is to show you this old tiger, to show you this old face. And even if you don't get that angle that you wanted, like the ideal angle would be a little lower, right? And you probably couldn't get that, but get rid of these distractions. And then me as the viewer, I would get more drawn into that face. Even though I look at that left eyeball quite a bit, I'm still drawn away sometimes looking at a rock. And I wish you would have something done to draw me in closer. We'll take it out.
Jordanian ibex.
Oh, I'm gonna see some next week in Switzerland, I hope. Those ibexes are cool though. And here we have an image, right? Okay, you check a lot of the right things. We got a little bit of a highlight on the one eye. We got great details throughout the animal. For the ibex, it's really like what's special about them is their horns, right? It's like they're like huge and detailed and curled, and that's what I'm seeing in the image. Now, yes, do I wish you were just a tad lower and eye level? Do I wish we had a little bit more room on the right side for that ibex? Yes, a little bit. Maybe a little bit more room on the top because you're getting really close to the top. But we'll keep it in for now because I think you as the maker wanted me to see those horns and all the detail in there. And you captured that, right? Even though I wish there would be a little bit more room and we would be a little more eye level with the animal. But we'll keep it in.
Grazers.
It's great that the one looks at you. We have that connection to the one on the right side. Even if the other one is looking out of the frame, I wonder if we could have eliminated the other one with a crop, but a straight up crop doesn't really work out because then we cut off the ear of the other one. Yeah, that wouldn't necessarily work. I'm focused on the right one, like the right one I make the connection with. What I'm struggling with a little bit, and you can tell that yourself, right? It was a very sunny day. When I look at the back of the one on the right side, it's just super, super bright there. And even the background, the greens are very, very bright and on the sunny day. And maybe you try to work on the image a little bit. The background looks a little noisy. Maybe it was a big crop. I'm not quite sure how much work you put into this image. But I do want to keep it in because I feel that, especially the right one, it's kind of a nice capture because it looks directly at us. So we'll keep it in for that quality. But I think you maybe over sharpened it a little bit along the way, and it's just really, really bright.
High school graduation portrait of 2002.
So here we have another one with that artificial background added, and it kind of like, I like the colors because it does remind me a bit of like the desert. Gives me like the desert feel that you created here with those colors. I like that the camel there is nicely in focus and looks at us. I'm struggling a little bit again, because it has a chain on it. It has like blankets on it for riding. So it is a domesticated animal, even though it's not working right now. It's just standing there. So I'm struggling with that a little bit. And because there's no people involved there, we're gonna keep it in. Or we'll keep this one in. It's well captured.
Gator.
It has a lot of good qualities to it, this image. What I like is, we have the diagonal, we have the eyeball of the gator, we have basically just like those small number of colors there. We have like some slime green neon color that's probably created by whatever algae in the sunlight, and it's on the gator. We have that bright spot on the top with the eyeball. We have the darker parts that are underwater from the gator itself. So it creates an interesting image, and I like that you have it on an angle moving through the image. Again, maybe a tiny bit more room on the right side for that gator to move into it. But when I look at the gator itself, the most important part is this bright area with the eyeball there. And that is just center left a little bit. So we do have enough room for the eyeball to move through the image. Yeah, it's striking. We'll keep it in.
The boss.
I like that it's captured on cloudy, kind of overcast day, and you can tell by the colors and the exposure that's like nicely muted. There's no highlights, there's no harsh shadows that would distract or would take some of the emphasis away. We have those catch lights in the eyeballs that you can see, and the line has room on the right side to look into. So it checks all these boxes, and we have great details throughout. We'll keep that one in.
Getting dinner for the kids.
So here we got a story to tell of the bluebirds and the nesting boxes, and I guess the top is a little one already eating probably what the parent brought it. But we have a story here, right? We have kind of like a little bit of interaction going on in the life of those bluebirds. I wish two birds would do something together. I wish there would have been the exchange of that little grub, that little caterpillar, whatever it is, that we can capture that. But sometimes it's really hard. And you always have to be ready and just shooting at a really high speed. It's nice that everything is sharp in the image. All those birds, they're very sharp. So you had a nice depth of field. And maybe the background was green like that, and you had a right lens to make it that blurry. Maybe you added more blur in post-processing. But it's really nicely done, right? It's very muted, non-distracting, very pleasing. We'll keep it in.
Ciao.
Here we have a nice portrait of that monkey. Again, it's like an eye-level shot, and they're doing something, just sitting there looking. They're yawning right now, and they show us other interesting parts that we sometimes don't see, because most of the time the mouth is closed, and they yawn every once in a while, and you were there with the shutter speed firing away and capturing that. And it's kind of fun to see the tongue and their teeth, right? And then we realized that maybe they're not so distant distant cousins from us, and we kind of related to those guys in some ways. I like what you've done with the background. It almost looks like a motion blur. Maybe it's just out of focus background, and it turned out that way with the leaves. But it kind of like adds an interest to it. I will keep that one in.
Chasing a runaway child.
When you go to the zoo and you see, or drive through safari or wherever it was, maybe it was in Africa and just some park. It's kind of fun to watch the animals interact like that and run around. And sometimes it's really hard to capture it in an image because you kind of like try to capture the moment. And then when you have it on a photo, it looks like a little bit chaotic. And we don't know what we need to focus on. And if you hadn't told me that they're chasing a runaway little one, I would have probably thought, no, that's just like 4 zebras running around in the backyard right now, and one of them is younger. I'm distracted by the crooked horizon line where the street is like going like downhill and the fence is running downhill. I wish that would be straighter. And I wish we had, maybe more of a focus, just like having the little one with the big zebra, with one of the zebras following that little one. And of course, it's easier for me to, it's easier said than done, because maybe you didn't have that long lens, and maybe you just had the lens that was on your camera at that moment and you captured that moment. So it's a nice memory, but for a competition, we will take it out because it doesn't have the impact.
Queen bee.
And I'm sorry, Queen Bee, you're very pretty, and my wife is a veterinarian, and I have a lot of cats at home, but you are a pet, so that's why you get disqualified.
Resting but watching you.
So I wonder if there was in Jersey up at the Lakota Wolf Preserve, or maybe out west where they have some more big rocks and evergreen forests. I'm not quite sure. I do like how you handle the eyes, right? Even though the wolf doesn't have the head up right now, looking at us, the eyes are looking at us because the head is down and they just have those eyes going like right at us. So that's nicely captured. I like how you capture the pose on the rock. Many times people say the animal has to do something, otherwise an animal sitting there or lying around is just not interesting. But because of the connection we have with that wolf and the eyeballs, I feel it's very interesting. What I'm struggling with a little bit here is the bright fur right above the head. And we're losing a little bit of detail there. It's just really, really white on my screen, the fur. And the background is a little distracting. I think we could have maybe blurred it more in post-processing. But I like the wolf itself. I like the eyes, and I think that's where the story is. So kudos to you that you captured that expression. We'll keep it in.
African elephant.
Well, I hope you shot that one with a wide-angle lens. And it looks like this guy just came out of the water. Here, we have just the parts of the elephant that is the most interesting, right? We didn't include more of the environment. We didn't include any other animals. We focused on that one animal. We focused on the head mostly. We have the body in there. We have it in the natural environment, coming out of the water, probably. Back is pretty wet. And we get a beautiful side light. So it's like a portrait. One side of the elephant is lit more than the other side. It's in the shade, so it creates this interesting image that you have here. We'll keep it in.
Hey, handsome, notice me.
They captured a nice moment of them interacting. And what this image is suffering from, right, is that it's just a bit blurry. So maybe the shutter speed was low, and we got the 2 giraffes blurry in the image. And I wish they had interacted a little differently by like maybe looking at each other. The one giraffe is looking away, the other one's looking to the right. So maybe hanging out there for a little bit longer. Maybe you could have captured a different moment. We'll take that one out.
Mom and hungry chicks.
that's an well taken picture of these robins in the nest, and you are very fortunate to have had a chance to capture these at eye level with some kind of camera. I don't know what you did, if you had your camera set up on a remote and just snapped away when they came in. But it's great, tells a great story, of their survival, their daily living in the nest, feeding the young, the parents coming back. I kind of like what you've done with the background. I feel like the background maybe was a little bit different, but there's some processing that went on into there, and it draws me into the nest a little bit more because of the colors kind of like complement the nest there. We'll keep it in.
Do not disturb.
I can appreciate the nap of the bear. I sometimes feel that way too, and he feels very cozy, and it's kind of interesting the longer I look at the image, right? It's kind of like interesting when I think of the treatment of the post-processing that you've done here, because he almost looks like a little stuffed animal now, and with the green background and even the wood, it looks a little green now. It looks like it's out of a different place, kind of. We'll keep that one in.
Bath time.
Oh, cat again. I'm sorry, cat. Another cat that needs to be disqualified.
Merlin falcon.
It's really close up Merlin there. I like when you can get close to those birds and see all the details, see like their beak and see how sharp it is. I had a young red tail in my yard the other day, and I was cutting the lawn with my riding mower, and I got within 20 feet, and he was sitting there not flying away. He had nothing to eat, he was just sitting there. So he let me go in, get my 840, and I captured him in full frame with an 840 millimeter setup. And I got great detail, and the guy was like just hanging. It was great. But of course, he only did it once for me. Anyway, so it's great when you can capture all these details of the bird, especially the eyeball, right? When you can get all of that. What I think happened here though on the eyeball, we have that really, really bright light in there. And I wonder if it was a artificial light, or if it was outside and it's just the sunlight that's so bright. And that really bright spot, yes, I say, get a catchlight in the eye, but that one here, I feel is kind of distracting. It takes me away from the feathers, the structure and the pupil and all those things because it's so bright. But we'll keep it in because it's a very cool close-up of the bird's eye and beak.
Okay, we have 18 for round 2. Linux.
Give it an 8.
Standing proud.
Give it a 9.
Squirrel on the rock.
Give it a 7.
Monkey face.
Give it an 8.
Caged.
Give it a 9.
That's close enough.
Give it an 8.
Jordanian ibex.
Give it an 8.
Grazers.
Give it a 7.
High school graduation portrait class of 2002.
Give it a 7.
Gator.
Give it an 8.
The boss.
Give it an 8.
Getting dinner for the kids.
Give it a 9.
Shout.
Give it a 9.
Resting but watching you.
Give it an 8.
African elephant.
Give it a 9.
Mommy and hungry chicks.
Give it a 9.
Do not disturb.
Give it an 8.
Merlin falcon.
give it an 8.
Okay. First, second, third, the rest will be honorable mention.
First place will go to the giraffe in black and white.
Hold on. Okay.
Second place will go to the elephant.
Okay.
Third place will go to all the other 4s. All the other pictures will get third place.
I can't do that.
Oh, yes, you can. Okay, then let me let me think about it a little bit longer. You know what? I will have to, and feel free to talk to me afterwards, but I'm gonna give third place to that jaguar. Second place, second one from the left, and I wonder about the maker, and maybe the maker can tell me something later about the jaguar.
Okay.
What they did with the eyeballs in terms of like what was their intent, because I think that works really well with the fence in the background. So I think it was very striking. That's why I gave it third. But they were also great. You know, you guys get around and do nice work there with those animal pictures. And I even like the cats, but they were just pets.
All right. Animals A, honorable mention. Getting dinner for the kids. Mario, once again, beautiful job. Shout, Harvey. That's a Harvey. Beautiful. Mom and the Hungry Chicks. Mario, really nice. Third place, Cage, Bobby, beautiful job. Second place, African Elephant, Harvey, that is some picture. And first place, Standing Proud, Harvey again. What can I say? It's beautiful.
Harvey had a good time in Africa, I can tell you that.
Yeah, he sure did.
He sure did.
Okay.
How many times have you been to Africa, Harvey?
I was unmuted. What did you say?
How many times were you in Africa?
Once,
Wow, you got all of those on the same trip?
but over a 2-week period.
Nice.
Went on about 20 safaris.
Wow,
It was great.
you're a busy man. And who did the jaguar with the eyeballs turning green? And what was the intention for that one?
Hey, that was not me, the
That
jaguar.
was Bobby.
Yeah, well, yeah. Isn't it supposed to be in natural surroundings?
The zoological animals were considered, maybe considered.
Yeah,
But I feel like Bobby told a story there.
I think somebody slipped through.
No, actually, in our definition, we had, we allowed, let me just read it. Non-domesticated animals in refuges or zoo type environments may be included.
If I would have caught that, I would have nailed it.
Oh, it's there on the website. It was sent
Yeah.
out in the mail.
I let it go by. I would have never included that.
Listen, Harvey, we can leave that to another time. Bobby, you want to unmute yourself? They had a question for you.
Yes, you asked me what my intent was. Actually, what I was intent on was blurring the cage, which I did by opening up to the widest aperture possible. And then that's just the way it came out. The colors are pretty much the way they were. I think I did emphasize the eyes more. I worked on the eyes, but everything else was as it came out of the camera.
It was nice. I felt like it had a strong impact because of the caged feeling and because of the green eyes. So I felt
Yes,
like you
he was
added-
pacing back and forth.
Yeah,
He was not a
interesting.
happy camper.
Interesting.
Thank you. Mhm.
Robert, you said something. I did the shot of the two bluebirds.
Yeah,
That's the mom on the
Oh.
top of the cage.
Oh, those
That's what I
bluebirds
thought.
tricked me
The
again.
babies are all inside.
Oh, they're inside.
I would
So-
love it if that was a clear nesting box, but it's not.
Oh, okay.
And the
What do you-
father had just given a bug to one inch through the hole, and the other one, the mother had the other one up on
Where
top.
did you go for that? You have it in your neighborhood in a park nearby?
Actually, Harvey and I went for a walk over at, it's over around Princeton, Washington Meadows.
Yes,
Oh,
Park,
okay.
I think it is.
Yeah.
yeah.
And we
So
were walking around and they had some nesting
it was one,
boxes.
it was
over this
bird
field.
cage. We saw one bird cage in the middle of this big field.
Field, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
there were a number of shots there. And that
Yeah.
was a real green background because it was a
Nice.
600 millimeter lens. And there was a big, long green lawn behind
Oh,
it.
it's beautiful.
So
Yeah.
it became green.
They came out well, yeah.
I want to say I did the infrareds and I was a good catch on the building. It's like not the first time I've done that. And I realized I know how to fix it, but I missed it. You know,
Yeah.
I was so intent on the tree and the
So do
bench.
you have a modified camera or you just do the photo on the
I
front?
actually asked Eric Gorman and I got his advice. I went up to Kalari Vision, near him. And I had a D750 converted. It was sitting on my shelf because I have a mirrorless. And I have a bunch of different lenses. That was a chrome lens, a Kalari chrome. And the colors, you don't have to do color swapping with that particular lens. It makes everything the sky blue and the leaves orange, red, depending how you edit it.
Yeah.
So-
ARG is a good resource for infrared for sure.
Yeah, I want to get a lesson from him actually on processing. Because I'm having a hard time. Anybody else have anything else to
And
add?
may I say something?
Yes, you may.
I am so thrilled with my first place
Yes.
on my sunset. That was taken with an old version of my Samsung phone camera. And I put it on my newer phone and did some work on it, editing. And Bobby helped me with a few finer points that I didn't know how to do. And I'm just thrilled. Yeah, just thrilled.
That was very striking, right? I mean, you see this beautiful silhouette of this
Yeah.
tree that's out of season and beautiful sunset and nicely seen. Who did the guy paving the street in New York?
Hmm?
Who did the paving guy in New York? That old guy walking and paving.
That was,
Who did that? How long ago was that?
That was,
The paving, the guy that,
It's Dan
yeah,
Sudberg.
yeah,
that
Dan.
was,
Dan,
Dan,
our
we
former
can't hear you.
pres-
Dan, can you hear?
No, that wasn't, was that Dan? Oh, okay.
I think it was.
Yeah.
Who was it?
Yes, that's right.
Dan, we can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Dan.
No, he knows that.
Evidently, he can't bring
I'm
up his audio.
All right.
Yeah.
That's okay. It was a great image, though. It was probably a few years old, right?
He's better at photography
Way
than
back.
computers.
Do a chat. Put a chat, type in something
He
on the
took
chat.
he took it with the brownie in the old days in New York City.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, that was Teddy's diner table.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You enjoy Teddy's food. I have a hard time enjoying Teddy's.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
Well,
go
I
there
agree.
for breakfast. We go there for breakfast.
agree.
I go there too, but the food is, touch and go.
Yeah.
I'll have
yeah.
You gotta support those old time neighborhood
There you go.
restaurants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting story about how they came to be. And when they bought the place, the guy that owns it, I think it was his parents,
Yeah.
His father, yeah.
his mother and father. His mother was Puerto Rican. I think his father was Italian and
Greek.
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 Right, thank you. And they didn't want to sell it to them because his mother was Puerto Rican. So the lawyer bought the place and then sold it to them.
Right.
Yeah. A little bit of history.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
And good eggs and bacon every now and then.
Yeah.
I'll have to keep that in mind.
Well, I
Okay.
hope you all stay safe on your future travels. I'm looking forward to maybe coming back to your club one day, maybe in person one day,
Hey,
and
Oh,
seeing where you all
Robert.
traveled.
We always enjoy your judging. You're so good
Yeah.
humored. You
Yes,
you're good people.
wonderful.
And I like the fact that you give the positive and then you give the, the critique. So how you can improve the photo, not making the photographer feel bad that they did something wrong,
Oh, thank you,
It's just,
thank you.
yeah, it gives you, like that little piece of grass with my
I mean-
bear. He was behind the fence, by the way. And I did have a zoom lens on.
I mean, many times you just enter a picture because you want to hear from somebody else what they think, because maybe you're unsure, right? You want another opinion.
Mhm.
And I feel like that these competitions, are really, really helpful to maybe just let you know how somebody else sees your work.
Yeah.
yes.
If you imagine,
Absolutely.
if you imagine that you all go on a field trip to New York City to the MoMA, when you look at a piece of art in the Museum of Modern Art, I'm sure all of you have a very different opinion of that piece of art, right?
Oh, yeah.
So,
That's
For
for sure.
sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Comments were really worthwhile.
I'm gonna turn off the recording now.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So, Robert,
Thank
you
you.
got your answer to the mystery question.
I did. I didn't Google it yet.